How's it going, everyone? My name is Arthur Shetler, and this presentation demonstrates a vulnerability assessment conducted against the CYB610 version 1 virtual machine using Kali Linux. The objective is to simulate a real-world penetration testing workflow by identifying exposed services, enumerating those services, and analyzing potential vulnerabilities that could lead to system compromise. The purpose of this lab is to understand how vulnerabilities can be identified through structured scanning and enumeration. This includes performing Nmap scans to discover open ports, identifying running services and their versions, and mapping those services to known vulnerabilities. This process mirrors the early stages of a penetration test, where an attacker gathers as much information as possible before attempting exploitation. The key takeaway is that vulnerabilities often become apparent through misconfigurations, outdated software, and unnecessary exposed services. The environment consists of two virtual machines running inside VirtualBox on the same isolated network. Kali Linux serves as the attacker system, while CYB610 is the intentionally vulnerable target. Both systems are configured within the 192.168.560/24 subnet, which allows direct communication between them. This setup simulates an internal network scenario where an attacker already has access to the network and is conducting reconnaissance to identify vulnerable systems. Operating in an isolated lab environment is critical to safely performing these activities without impacting real systems. So now we conducted a subnet scan to identify active hosts within the network range. This step is essential because before targeting a system, an attacker must first determine which IP addresses are in use and responsive. The scan revealed multiple hosts, including the CYB610 machine at 192.168.56.103. From a penetration testing perspective, this is part of the reconnaissance phase where the goal is to map the network and identify potential targets. This process reduces noise and ensures that further scanning is focused only on systems that are actually reachable. An initial Nmap scan was performed against the target system to identify open ports and accessible services. By default, Nmap scans the top 1,000 most common ports, which provides a fast, efficient overview of the system's attack surface. The scan here reviewed several open ports, including SSH on port 22, HTTP on port 80, RPC services on port 111, NetBIOS on port 139, and HTTPS on port 443. Each open port represents a potential entry point into the system. For example, an open HTTP port indicates a web server that could be vulnerable to web-based attacks such as directory transversal or remote code execution. Similarly, exposed SMB or NetBIOS services are often targeted for enumeration and exploitation, especially in legacy systems. This step is important because it establishes what services are available before performing deeper enumeration. This scan used default Nmap scripts to extract deeper service information. One major issue identified is that the SSH service supports SSH v1, which is deprecated and vulnerable to man-in-the-middle attacks due to weak encryption and lack of integrity protection. The HTTP service allows the trace method, which is considered risky because it can be exploited in cross-site tracing attacks to steal authentication cookies. Additionally, the SSL configuration shows outdated cipher suites such as RC4 and MD5, which are cryptographically broken and vulnerable to interception or downgrade attacks. The presence of NetBIOS also indicates that SMB enumeration may be possible, which is commonly exploited in legacy systems. We continued our aggressive scans with OS detection, and this revealed that the system is running a Linux 2.4.x kernel, which is extremely outdated. This is significant because Linux 2.4 reached end of life many years ago and is known to contain multiple vulnerabilities such as privilege escalation and buffer overflow exploits. Attackers can leverage publicly available exploits targeting this kernel version to gain root access. From a security perspective, outdated operating systems dramatically increase risk because they no longer receive security patches. SMB enumeration was performed to identify shared resources and users. Even though limited results were returned, the presence of the SMB service is important because SMB is historically one of the most exploited protocols. Attacks such as null sessions, password spraying, and exploit frameworks like Eternal Blue have targeted SMB services. In older systems like CYB610, SMB misconfigurations are very common and can lead to unauthorized access. During our vulnerability analysis, multiple critical vulnerabilities were identified during enumeration. The use of SSHV1 is particularly dangerous because it allows attackers to intercept or manipulate encrypted sessions due to weak cryptographic design. As stated before, the HTTP trace method introduces the risk of cross-site tracing attacks where attackers can retrieve sensitive headers such as cookies. Finally, SMB exposure just increases the attack surface significantly, as it is commonly targeted for enumeration and exploitation in legacy systems. In conclusion, the CYB610 system presents a high-risk security posture due to multiple outdated services and insecure configurations. The combination of weak encryption, legacy protocols, and outdated operating systems significantly increases the likelihood of compromise. From an attacker's perspective, this system would be considered a low-effort, high-reward target due to the availability of known exploits. This lab demonstrates how enumeration alone can reveal critical weaknesses without even performing exploitation. So here is my flaw hypothesis. So vulnerabilities identified suggest the system has not been properly patched or hardened. Misconfigurations and legacy services indicate poor security controls, which would allow attackers to gain initial access and escalate privileges. Well, that was my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a great night.